Hotel staff of Reddit. What's the most NSFW moment you witnessed at your hotel? I wasn't working at this hotel and was just a guest, but I wish I had asked the staff for the backstory. I'm checking into my hotel in Los Angeles and was given my keycard. Head to the room, open the door, and there's a naked buff dude standing next to the bed just staring at me. He says nothing. I apologize and quickly leave, assuming somehow I'd gotten the wrong room. I go back to the front desk and say, "I'm sorry, but I think you gave me the wrong room." There's a naked man already in there. The worker at the front desk says, "Shit, not again." He pulls out his walkie-talkie and says, "Security." He's back again. They assigned me to a different room and I was on my way. The naked man. Such a classic. I worked front desk at a luxury hotel. One night the elevator doors opened and a completely naked woman stumbled out, covered in blood. It turned out that she was epileptic, had a seizure in the shower, fell, cut herself, exited her room and locked herself out. It was a truly terrifying 25 minutes of trying to piece together what had happened. I work overnights in a relatively small hotel, and at least 6/7 days a week, I hear people fucking loud as hell in their rooms. Half the rooms have a balcony that overlooks the lobby, and those doors aren't soundproof at all. We had a man sleepwalk out of his room to the lobby, buck-ass nude. We had a woman show up in the lobby in her underwear. Her BF choked her out and stole her wallet with the room keys, and before I started here, there was a massive wedding that took place, and later that night, the groom killed his bride and himself in their room. I was a night auditor at a home 2 suites several years back. Our usual extended stay clientele were traveling nurses, government contractors, or out-of-town veterans getting something done at the VA hospital. But we had one guy and girl on the first floor for a few weeks that were odd. It took us a bit to realize it was a hooker and her pimp. Some John would come to see her, and the guy who rented the room would come out to hang in the lobby or go smoke at our fire pit. Our manager was a bit clueless and took longer to figure it out, but once she did, she went and knocked on the door to ask them to leave. He only cracked the door so she couldn't see inside the room. He declined housekeeping for 2 straight weeks, but she managed to see an office chair behind him that had 2 handguns and a huge Rambo knife on it, so she called the cops. I came up later that day to pick up my check to find cops had surrounded the building. Turns out he barricaded himself in the room and held the prostitute hostage, so SWAT had to come tear gas him through the window and use a battering ram to get inside. The owners fired our manager for that, for letting the sex work go on so long and the optics of cops swarming our hotel. I worked at a hotel in a resort town in Europe. One of the maids called me to a room for help because it has been the location of an extremely messy orgy from the touring ice show. The room was covered in bodily secretions and excreta. There were used condoms thrown everywhere and half the furniture was busted. The poor maid was in tears, thinking she'd have to clean it. The hotel management called in a professional cleaning company who wore disposable suits, respirators and eye protection. They got rid of most of the stuff in the room, and charged a fortune to the ice show. Had an underage girl naked from the waist down speed walking around the hotel and casino looking for her mom. She was absolutely hammered and in full blackout. Me and another supervisor caught up to her just as she was getting into an elevator full of drunk dudes telling her they would help her find her mom. Her mom was not at the casino and we never determined where she actually came from. Just appeared there, moving like a speed walker, naked except for a tank top. I used to work as a bartender for the Four Seasons in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. Here's my story. Late night, 1:30-ish a.m., and we are getting ready to close the bar. A very attractive woman, aged about 30, approaches. My buddy and I tell her that we are about to close up, but can offer her a drink if she wants. She seems drunk already, and pauses for a moment, before whipping out a $20 bill and handing it to me. She asks for a Negroni. I say sure, and begin to make it. As I am putting the ice into the mixer, I see my buddy give me a funny look, a shocked sort of look. I ask him what's up, and he side-eyes towards the woman. Lo and behold, I turn around and there she is. Tits out, rubbing her nipples. I ask her kindly to leave, and tell her I cannot serve her. She walks away, but not before discarding of her sports bra and calling me a SPCK. That is my crazy NSFW story. I was a night shift security guard for a motel right next to the biggest casino in my state. It was common for drug addicts to hang out around the property. One time this guy staying in a room did a little too much meth and had a freak out. He was running around the walkways naked. I had to ward him away from people's rooms so they wouldn't be disturbed. He ended up jumping off the second-story balcony and splatting on the pavement. He scampered up and hauled ass across the street into a car dealership. Not my problem anymore. I'm working night shift as a receptionist and had my fair share of questionable encounters. One night a guy comes from outside and asks if he could use our restroom. It's located one floor down, and every time we let someone in at night we kind of scan the person before letting them in, and I didn't get any crazy vibes from this dude. After about 20 to 25 minutes I got the feeling maybe everything wasn't okay and went downstairs. When approaching the bathrooms I could hear him inside the handicap toilet and the door was open a bit. He was on his knees with his pants down, masturbating and sucking on the door handle while watching porn on his phone. I yelled at him and asked what the hell he is doing but couldn't get in contact with him, so I grabbed a towel and threw it over his face to break line of sight. I told him to leave immediately or I would call the police. I went upstairs and after a few minutes he left the building. That one sticks out for me. Not witnessed, but saw a portion on camera. A guest was walking the halls with a machete. He proceeds to go into his room. A few minutes later, the guest next door can be seen pounding on his door. The previous night he had assaulted the woman he was staying there with. I'm assuming they thought he was abusing her again. The neighbors started to head back to their room, when the guest throws the woman out of the room, with her arm barely attached, spraying blood all over the walls and floor. He doesn't notice the door shut behind him, and he takes off running. He was caught very quickly in a parking lot next door. That room was something I'll never forget. Blood and flesh on the bed and floor. Boss said to tell housekeeping to clean it up. I quit a few days later. Many years ago worked at a very nice casino resort as a valet. Regular pulled up in his nice BMW and went to help. Wrote up his ticket, got his keys and offered to help load up his luggage on a bell cart while we waited for a bellman. Opened the trunk and went to lift the suitcase and I about threw my back out. I wasn't prepared for it to be so heavy. Gave it another go and heaved it onto the bell cart and heard a sound. Mr. XXX, did your suitcase just make an oof sound? Long story short, a prostitute who was banned from the property was stowed away in there to get up to his room. Mr. XXX, did your suitcase just make an oof sound? I'm imagining the suitcase making the Roblox death sound right now. So not hotel staff. But this story fits the bill for what you're asking. I was a pizza delivery boy. Fleabag motel in our town. We get a call for a pizza delivery, blah blah blah. I get the order, I drive it over and knock on the room door. Guy answers the door wearing only a towel, and I glance right past him and there's a beautiful butt-ass naked black woman laying on the bed on full display. She notices me looking, I'm sure, and just says, "How you doin', baby?" Not baby in a way like you would call a lover, or like she was flirting, but more in a motherly way. I looked up at the dude after that and he gave me a look like, "That's right, I just got done hitting that." Not staff, but once just outside my room, like 2 doors, someone pass out drunk and shit himself, liquid shit, huge pool. At least 2 meters diameter, The hotel changed everyone on the floor to other rooms in other floors. I saw someone mop without putting out the sign. Definitely not safe for work. I work in the back of the house at a major Las Vegas resort. When we first opened, management made every effort to conceal anything negative that might have occurred from the guests staying at the resort. One day on the receiving dock, an ambulance crew comes through pushing an empty gurney. About 30 minutes they come back with a body completely under a sheet. Someone had died. The NSFW moment was that this obvious man's corpse was that he had a protruding hard-on tenting the sheet. It was rumored he died of a combined cocaine overdose while taking Viagra, and he died in the act. Eastern Idaho, night audit and front desk. During a state high school wrestling tournament, I heard a commotion in the sauna around 2 a.m. Grabbed the night audit baseball bat and went to see what was going on. Found 20 to 30 teen boys either stark naked or in BVDs camping out in a sauna with room for 6. They were obviously trying to sweat down to make weight. A couple of months later, I heard a guy yelling from the closed indoor pool at around 4 a.m. He'd stuck his Johnson in a drain hole on the side of the pool, and it got stuck. I assessed he wasn't in immediate danger and called the fire department. He wasn't free when I left at 6. When I was young and worked at a hotel, I was delivering a room service meal, and when I got there, the door was closed but had been left just shy of being latched. I knocked and then the guest yelled, "Come in." I pushed it open with the cart, walked in, and he was standing there with a big grin on his face watching my reaction as I wheeled in the cart, butt naked, with a woman, also naked, on her knees vigorously blowing him. She never stopped or even did a sideways glance in my direction. He smiled and reached out and handed me a $20 he had in his hand and said to just leave it there and close the door on the way out. I guess part of their kink was to show off and see my reaction. I was shocked, but never said anything to anyone at work. I worked at the front desk of a large convention hotel, one of the big hotel brands. The lobby bar was right across the lobby from the front desk. One night as I was working the desk checking someone into their room, these two drunk guys in the bar got into a fight. They were really going at it, beating the shit out of each other, and they spilled out into the lobby. Then one guy picks up a bar stool, and just like in the movies, he crashed it down over the other guy's head. But unlike in the movies, the bar stool didn't splinter into pieces. It was solid wood, and he bashed the other guy hard. Other guy went down like a sack of potatoes, out cold, bleeding all over the place from a large head wound. I got to sit and watch as the cops and paramedics came, arrested them both and patched up the one guy's busted head. Meanwhile, I still had guests checking in, wondering what kind of hotel they had booked. I had a woman tell me she was only into white guys, and it's too bad I am not. I am pretty dark-skinned Mexican. I didn't really acknowledge her. Her husband said he needs to go talk to the front desk. 10 seconds later, she pulls up her dress and tells me to fuck her on the bar. She says it's a fantasy to fuck hotel or service workers. I ask her to please go away as one. I am not staff, I just sat at the bar and two. My wife is next to me laughing at her airing her vag in the hotel bar. The bartender is horrified. The actual staff are apologizing. I ask them for what, because my wife is hysterically laughing and I am not afraid of free-range women. Now my wife is dying laughing and we just showed up here for our honeymoon 30 minutes ago. Overall, a good start to a great week. The most NSFW thing that I recall was the manager getting on a cleaning kick and accidentally mixing the wrong chemicals in the pool area. A toxic gas started to form and the whole hotel had to be evacuated at like 5 a.m. Not me, but a friend worked at the Hyatt in Chicago. As part of her duties, she was the liaison to the annual Mr. Leather International https://www.imrl.com/contest. One of the first events was a square dance. Around 15 minutes into the event, she went to the ballroom to check if everything was going well. The doors were locked and she didn't have her keys. She knocked on the door of the sound booth and they let her in. When she got in, she saw hundreds of hairy men square dancing in the nude. Not to NSFW, as I live in a relatively small, quiet town, but we had military staying with us long term, and a few of them were bringing random girls back to their room one weekend, and the next day their wives would be coming to stay, made for some awkward moments. Night shift during the Christmas season. One drunk guy from a company Christmas party took the Nutcracker statue, with an open mouth, from the lobby to the hallway by his room and forced the statue to give him fellatio. Expressionless. I am a paramedic and we got a call to a hotel for a welfare check because we heard a woman screaming. We go to the room. Knock on the door. And the fattest guy opens the door smoking a blunt. They were filming a porno. Two people just going at it in the background, and we just turned around and left. I about pissed myself laughing. Back in 07-08-ish, I was working as a security guard in Hawaii. First job after HS. The firm I worked for had me at the Hilton in Waikiki or Honolulu, floated between both locations. A group of soldiers back from deployment threw a party in a suit that got way out of hand. We eventually had to call the police to handle it for us. As I'm outside greeting the police before taking them up to 30-something floor, a holy hand grenade of Chambord comes crashing down into the cruiser's windshield, followed by a few more bottles of liquor. As we get to the floor the party was at, we were greeted by an absolute beast of a naked woman on a rampage. Now I'm 6 feet 4 inches and at the time about 270 pounds. This woman had to have been 6 feet 6 inches, 300 pounds of pure Polynesian rage. She's throwing tables, vases, pictures, plants, anything she can get a hold of. As soon as she acknowledged us and the police were there, she squats down and just starts spraying liquid shit and piss everywhere. In mid-attempt of trying to fling her waist, she caught with her hand. 2 officers simultaneously deployed tasers, just leaving her to crappy flop in her own shit. Currently sitting at work in a hotel reading these stories at 2 a.m. is not great for the mind.